The challenge that shook the stars. The galactic Grand Arena was alive with energy. Thousands of alien species gathered, their voices blending into a deafening roar. Holographic screens floated in the air, displaying the face of the undefeated champion, Selvar, the Conqueror. For years, Selvar had remained undefeated in single combat. His strength was legendary, his speed unmatched, and his battle instincts honed by centuries of war. He had crushed warriors from dozens of species, and now he stood once again in the center of the arena, waiting for his next opponent. The challenge was simple: survive 3 minutes against Selvar. No one had ever done it. The announcer's voice echoed through the arena. The champion of the galaxy stands ready. Who dares challenge him? Silence followed. Even the bravest warriors hesitated. No one wanted to face Selvar. He had broken bones, shattered wills, and destroyed reputations. Then a voice spoke from the shadows. "I'll do it." Gasps spread through the crowd. The camera zoomed in on a lone figure stepping forward. A human. The aliens in the audience laughed. Some even booed. Humans were weak compared to the stronger species in the galaxy. They had no claws, no natural armor, no enhanced strength. Selvar raised an eyebrow, unimpressed. "You're joking, right?" The human, Captain Daniel Hayes, smirked. "No joke." The announcer hesitated, then cleared his throat. "Challenger confirmed. A human has entered the arena." More laughter. Some of the alien warriors shook their heads. This human was either insanely brave or incredibly foolish. Daniel stepped forward, rolling his shoulders. He wore no heavy armor, carried no weapons, just a standard combat uniform. He was lean, not bulky. His body wasn't covered in scars like the other warriors. Compared to Selvar, he looked fragile. The champion scoffed. "You won't last 10 seconds, human." Daniel chuckled. "Let's find out." The battle begins. A loud horn blared. The match had begun. Selvar moved first, a blur of motion. Despite his massive size, he was fast, inhumanly fast. His fist swung toward Daniel like a wrecking ball. The audience expected instant defeat, but Daniel wasn't there. In the blink of an eye, he had sidestepped. Selvar's massive fist crashed into the ground, cracking the floor beneath it. The arena went silent. Daniel smiled. "Missed me." Selvar snarled and lunged again. His 4 arms moved at once, each strike designed to break bones and crush organs. Daniel weaved through the attacks like water. He didn't block. He didn't need to. He was too fast, too unpredictable. The aliens watching began to murmur. How was this human dodging Selvar's attacks? The champion growled in frustration. He had fought massive warriors, psychic fighters, energy manipulators, but never someone like this. This human was treating the fight like a game. Selvar roared and activated his energy gauntlets. Sparks of plasma surrounded his fists. No more games. The first counterattack. Selvar lunged, faster than before. This time, Daniel didn't dodge completely. Instead, he sidestepped at the last moment and struck. It wasn't a powerful punch. It wasn't a brutal strike. It was a tap, right behind Selvar's knee. The champion stumbled. His balance wavered for half a second. The crowd gasped. Selvar never stumbled. The warrior's eyes widened in shock. He had fought thousands of battles, but this was something different. This wasn't just speed. This was intelligence. Daniel wasn't trying to overpower him. He was outthinking him. A new kind of fight. The battle continued, but now the tone had changed. Selvar was no longer an unstoppable force. He was confused, frustrated. Every time he attacked, Daniel was already moving, anticipating, countering in the smallest ways, making Selvar doubt himself. The minutes ticked by. The audience realized something terrifying. Daniel wasn't just surviving. He was winning. Shock across the galaxy. The Galactic High Council members, watching from their luxury skyboxes, leaned forward in disbelief. One of them muttered, "What is this human?" No one had ever fought like this. No one had ever made Xelvar look so vulnerable. The timer on the giant screen continued to count. Only 30 seconds remained. Xelvar, panting, glared at Daniel. You are mocking me." Daniel smirked. "No, I'm just better." The crowd erupted. The galaxy had never seen anything like this. The human was rewriting the rules of combat. And this was just the beginning. Strength versus strategy. The air in the galactic Grand Arena was thick with tension. The fight that was supposed to last no more than 10 seconds had already gone on for over 2 minutes. The crowd, once laughing at the human challenger, was now silent, watching in disbelief. Xelvar, the undefeated warrior, stood across from Captain Daniel Hayes, his 4 muscular arms flexing, his breathing deep and controlled. But there was something different about him now. He looked uncertain. For the first time in his long career, he wasn't the one controlling the fight. The human, smaller, weaker, unarmed, was dancing around him like a ghost, slipping through his attacks, countering with subtle but precise movements. Xelvar's sharp black eyes locked onto Daniel, narrowing. "Enough games, human," he growled. His voice rumbled through the arena like thunder. "I will end this." The shift in battle. Xelvar planted his feet, his massive body shifting into a low stance. The ground beneath him cracked under his strength. He wouldn't waste energy anymore. He would attack with purpose. Daniel noticed this shift immediately. Xelvar had been treating him like every other weak challenger, throwing wild, overwhelming attacks. But now he was taking the human seriously. Daniel rolled his shoulders, smirking. Finally. The next moment, Xelvar vanished. The audience barely had time to react before the warrior reappeared behind Daniel, his 4 fists descending like meteors. A normal opponent would have been crushed into the floor. But Daniel had already moved. He sidestepped at the last second, feeling the heat of Xelvar's energy-coated fists as they smashed into the arena ground. The impact sent a shockwave through the stadium. The tiles where Daniel had been standing exploded into dust. Gasps filled the air. The screen zoomed in on the human, still untouched. Xelvar whirled around, eyes blazing. How was this human moving so fast? He wasn't teleporting. He wasn't using technology. It was pure instinct, pure combat experience. The power of a different kind of warrior. Daniel wasn't the strongest fighter in the galaxy. He wasn't even the strongest human. But he was a soldier, a strategist, a survivor. Where Xelvar fought with power, Daniel fought with pattern recognition, adaptability, and discipline. And that was why he was winning. Xelvar charged again, throwing a precise combination of attacks. Instead of dodging, Daniel stepped into his space, getting dangerously close. The champion wasn't expecting that. Daniel moved low, grabbing Xelvar's wrist and twisting. There was a loud snap. Xelvar roared in pain. Daniel had just dislocated one of his secondary arms. The galaxy watches in disbelief. The entire arena went silent. Xelvar stumbled back, gripping his useless arm. He had never been injured in a match before. The alien spectators didn't know how to react. Some sat with mouths open. Others leaned forward, their eyes darting between the human and their fallen champion. One of the High Council leaders turned to his advisor. "This is impossible." The advisor swallowed hard. Apparently not. Xelvar's breathing was ragged. He flexed his remaining 3 arms, his pride burning like fire. "You dare wound me?" Daniel shrugged. "You left an opening. That's on you." Xelvar's entire body tensed. He had never felt this before. This humiliation, this vulnerability. For the first time, he was the one being studied. He was the one being outmatched. And that terrified him. The final phase begins. The champion took a deep breath. He couldn't let this continue. If he did, it wouldn't just be his reputation at stake. The entire warrior culture of his species would be shamed. He activated his combat implants. Instantly, his body glowed with red energy. His speed doubled. His remaining arms clenched into plasma-covered fists. The ground beneath him cracked even more. Daniel tilted his head. "Oh, now you're serious." Zelvar's face was twisted in rage. "I will break you." Daniel smiled, but his eyes, they were dead serious. The real fight was just beginning. The humans' unpredictable tactics. A hush fell over the galactic grand arena. The energy in the air was electric, thick with disbelief and rising tension. No one could have predicted this outcome. Not the spectators, not the Galactic High Council, and certainly not Zelvar, the Conqueror. For the first time in his long and undefeated career, Zelvar was wounded. One of his secondary arms hung limp at his side, useless. His reputation, built over centuries of dominance, was now at risk. And the one responsible, a human. Daniel Hayes stood on the opposite side of the battlefield, breathing steadily. His posture was relaxed, but his eyes were sharp, focused. He wasn't panting. He wasn't struggling. He was calculating. Zelvar growled, flexing his remaining arms. His muscles tensed, his plasma gauntlets flaring brighter. He had underestimated this human. He wouldn't make that mistake again. No more holding back. The unleashing of a galactic champion. With a guttural roar, Zelvar surged forward, the ground cracking beneath his feet. This time, he didn't just attack with brute force. He used strategy. His fists came from multiple angles, faster than before, sharper, deadlier. The audience gasped. Zelvar had switched styles. No longer a berserker, but a calculated warrior, his movements precise and relentless. Any other fighter would have been crushed under the sheer onslaught. But Daniel, he danced. Zelvar's massive fists swung through the air, each attack just barely missing. Daniel moved fluidly, almost effortlessly, as if he could see the future. One step to the right, a half-turn backward, a quick lean to the left. The giant alien warrior kept missing. A sense of frustration grew in the crowd. Zelvar was supposed to be unstoppable, yet here he was, chasing a human like a predator unable to catch its prey. The champion snarled. He feinted a punch to the left and spun with a reverse elbow strike. It was fast, blindingly fast. It should have landed. But once again, Daniel was already gone. Zelvar skidded to a stop, breathing heavily. He stared at Daniel in disbelief. This human was untouchable. The art of human adaptation. Daniel sighed, shaking his head. "You're predictable." Zelvar's eyes widened. Predictable. No one had ever called him that before. Daniel smiled. "You're strong, fast, and skilled. But you fight like a warrior who has never needed to adapt. You expect your opponent to crumble under your power. That's your weakness." Zelvar growled. "You mock me." Daniel's expression didn't change. "No, I'm just telling you the truth." The audience stirred. The Galactic High Council leaned in closer. Was it possible? Was humanity's greatest strength their ability to adapt? Zelvar clenched his fists. He was done playing this human's game. He needed to finish this. A new plan, a deadly mistake. Zelvar took a deep breath, centering himself. He had one advantage over this human: raw power. He lunged forward, but this time, he didn't try to hit Daniel directly. Instead, he slammed his fist into the ground. The force of the impact shattered the arena floor. Cracks spread like spiderwebs, throwing debris and dust into the air. Daniel's footing shifted. He stumbled, the first misstep he had made all fight. Zelvar saw his opening. With a roar, he threw a devastating uppercut, aiming for the human's chest. If it connected, it would break bones, crush organs. The audience gasped. This was it, the final blow. But in that single heartbeat, Daniel did something no one expected. Instead of dodging, he moved forward. The moment that changed everything. Zelvar's fist shot up, but Daniel sidestepped at the last second, spinning inside his guard. Before the alien could react, Daniel's elbow struck his ribcage. It wasn't a powerful hit. It didn't break bones. But it landed exactly where it needed to. A nerve point. A vulnerable spot. Pain exploded through Zelvar's body. His lungs locked up. His muscles tensed involuntarily. His body refused to move. For the first time in his life, Zelvar was paralyzed. The arena fell deathly silent. Zelvar, the undefeated champion, the greatest warrior in the galaxy, stood frozen, and the human had done it with a single, well-placed strike. The galaxy reacts. Gasps echoed through the crowd. The High Council members stood up from their seats. This was not a lucky hit. This was strategy, calculation, precision. Daniel stepped back, stretching his arms. "You put too much force into your punches," he said casually. "Leaves you wide open." Zelvar's eyes burned with rage, but there was something else beneath it. Fear. For the first time, the champion of the galaxy had lost control. And the galaxy knew it. The implications were terrifying. If a single human could do this to the strongest warrior alive, what else were they capable of? This fight was no longer just about a challenge. It was about the balance of power in the universe. And humanity had just changed everything. The unexpected turn. The galactic grand arena had never been this silent before. The spectacle unfolding before the crowd was not just a fight. It was a moment that would be remembered for centuries. Zelvar, the undefeated warrior, the living legend, the symbol of galactic supremacy, was frozen in place. And the cause of it? A single, calculated strike from a human. Daniel Hayes stood a few feet away, arms crossed, expression unreadable. He wasn't panting, wasn't tired. He was simply waiting. The weight of a single strike. Zelvar's breathing was shallow. A strange sensation crawled through his limbs, something he had never experienced before. Helplessness. The nerve cluster in his side had locked his body's movement for just a few seconds, but those seconds felt like an eternity. For a warrior like Zelvar, who had spent his entire life dominating his enemies, this was an unimaginable humiliation. His mind raced. How? How had this human done this? Daniel finally broke the silence. "You should relax." His voice was casual, as if they were just two sparring partners. "The paralysis will wear off in a few seconds." Zelvar's muscles tensed in frustration. His pride burned hotter than the plasma flowing through his gauntlets. This cannot be happening. And yet it was. The arena erupts. The silence was shattered by an explosion of voices. Aliens of all species, warriors, scholars, traders, even nobles, began shouting in shock. What just happened? Did that human just defeat him? Impossible. Humans are weak. On the Galactic High Council's private balcony, the most powerful leaders in the known universe exchanged worried glances. A reptilian ambassador hissed through his fangs. "This changes everything." An avian noble clutched his ceremonial staff. "We may have underestimated humanity." A cybernetic overlord, his mechanical limbs twitching, simply muttered, "Dangerous. Very dangerous." Even those who once mocked humans as a primitive species were now reconsidering their views. Zelvar breaks free. A sudden burst of energy rippled through the arena floor. Zelvar's body jerked as he broke free from the paralysis, forcing his muscles to move through sheer willpower. He stumbled back, chest heaving, eyes locked onto Daniel with an intensity that could shatter planets. "You will pay for that." His voice was no longer confident, it was venomous. Daniel tilted his head. "For what?" Proving that strength alone isn't enough. The words stung worse than any wound. For Zelvar, battle was everything. Combat was a language, a religion, a way of life. To be outmatched, outfought, humiliated by a human. Unacceptable. Zelvar's fingers tightened into fists. He had two choices. 1. Accept defeat and honorably yield. 2. Unleash everything he had, no matter the consequences. His pride made the decision for him. The rage of a champion. With an ear-splitting roar, Zelvar activated his true power. The plasma gauntlets on his arms flared bright blue, shifting into a form no one had seen before. His body bulked up, veins glowing with raw energy. The High Council members stood in alarm. No, he's activating his overdrive mode. The overdrive mode, a forbidden technique. It pushed Zelvar's body past its natural limits, increasing his strength and speed tenfold. But it came with a price. It destroyed the user's body if sustained for too long. Zelvar didn't care. You wanted a real fight, human. His voice was deeper, distorted by the raw energy coursing through him. Then I'll show you what real power looks like. The audience collectively gasped. Daniel, however, just smirked. Finally, I was starting to think you didn't have another gear. The speed of a monster. Zelvar disappeared. 1 second, he was in front of Daniel. The next, he was behind him, faster than the eye could track. A devastating punch exploded toward Daniel's back, a killing blow. But instead of dodging, Daniel turned at the last second and caught the punch with one hand. The arena went dead silent. Zelvar's glowing eyes widened. How? Daniel looked at the fist in his palm and gave a small nod. Yeah, that's more like it. And then, in an impossible move, Daniel twisted his wrist and sent Zelvar flying across the arena. The impossible counterattack. Zelvar crashed into the far wall, shattering solid steel panels. His body slumped to the ground, smoke rising from his armor. The crowd was no longer cheering. They were terrified. Daniel stood in the center of the battlefield, rolling his shoulder as if nothing had happened. You rely too much on brute force. His tone was almost bored. You never learned control. Zelvar coughed, struggling to rise. He had thrown everything he had at this human. Everything. And yet, Daniel Hayes wasn't even struggling. He was standing unscathed. A new reality for the galaxy. The High Council members whispered among themselves. We must reconsider our stance on humanity. If one human can do this, what are their armies capable of? This is no longer just a fight. It's a warning. Daniel took a few steps toward Zelvar and crouched down. You're strong, he admitted, but you've spent your whole life fighting weaker opponents. You never had to push yourself. That's why you lost. Zelvar clenched his jaw. Everything in him wanted to deny it. But deep inside, he knew. Daniel was right. The moment of decision. The referee stepped forward. Zelvar, do you yield? The champion's breathing was ragged. His body ached. His mind was spinning. Pride told him to fight on. But logic told him that this human had already won. Zelvar closed his eyes. Then slowly he nodded. I yield. The galaxy changes forever. The words shook the entire stadium. For the first time in history, Zelvar had surrendered. And the one who made him do it, a human. The galaxy would never be the same again. The warrior's humiliation. The galactic grand arena stood in stunned silence. The words had been spoken. The decision was final. Zelvar, the undefeated champion of the galaxy, had surrendered. The audience, millions watching live across thousands of star systems, could not comprehend what had just happened. This was not a battle between equals. This was supposed to be another easy victory for Zelvar. But instead, a human, a species mocked for their so-called frailty, had brought the greatest warrior in the known universe to his knees. The realization shattered the foundations of everything the galaxy believed. The moment of defeat. Zelvar kneeled on the shattered floor of the arena, his breathing labored, his body trembling, not from pain, but from something far worse. disgrace. He, the symbol of power, the terror of 100 worlds, had been outmatched. Not by brute force, not by some superior technology, but by skill, by intelligence, by something he had never respected before. Daniel Hayes stood a few feet away, watching Selvar with unreadable eyes. He wasn't celebrating. He wasn't gloating. That, more than anything, made Selvar's defeat burn deeper. Daniel had expected to win. And that meant Selvar's defeat was not an accident, not luck. It was inevitable. The crowd erupts. The silence in the stadium didn't last. The moment the referee confirmed Selvar's surrender, the arena exploded into chaos. Some cheered wildly, humans watching from their corner of the galaxy, realizing that one of their own had changed everything. But others were furious. Angry voices rose from the audience. The champion was cheated. That human used tricks, not strength. This fight was dishonorable. Zelvar's own people, the Korthan, washed in shame and disbelief. Their strongest warrior, their pride, had yielded, not to a superior force, but to something they had never trained for. Tactics, adaptability, precision. To a Korthan, battle was sacred. But to lose like this, it was an insult. The Council's fear. In the High Council's private balcony, the galaxy's most powerful rulers watched the scene unfold with growing unease. A blue-skinned dignitary from the Jakari Empire whispered, "If this human could defeat Selvar, what does that mean for the rest of us?" A cybernetic warlord, half machine, half flesh, clicked his metallic fingers. Humans were always seen as weak. His artificial eyes glowed. But if they have warriors like this, we may have been very, very wrong. The Chancellor of the Galactic Assembly, a being of shimmering energy, nodded slowly. We must reconsider humanity's place in the galaxy. Zelvar's struggle, still kneeling. Selvar clenched his fists. His pride screamed at him to stand, to fight, to prove himself. But his body refused to move. His mind replayed every moment of the battle, every mistake, every miscalculation. Daniel had read him like an open book, exploited his weaknesses. And the worst part, Daniel hadn't even used his full strength. The human could have ended the fight at any time. He let Zelvar fight. Zelvar realized the truth. Daniel had beaten him not just physically, but mentally. And that was worse than any injury. A warrior's choice. Slowly, painfully, Zelvar looked up at Daniel. "Why?" His voice was raw. "Why didn't you finish me?" Daniel studied him for a moment before answering. "Because you weren't my enemy. You were just my opponent." Zelvar's breath caught. For his entire life, he had seen every fight as a struggle for dominance. Win or be destroyed. But Daniel saw beyond that. And for the first time, Zelvar questioned everything he had believed in. He had been trained to crush the weak. But what if true strength was something else entirely? A shocking gesture. Then, Daniel did something no one expected. He took a step forward, then offered Selvar his hand. Gasps spread through the arena. A human, offering to help the champion he just defeated. It was unheard of. Zelvar stared at the outstretched hand. Every instinct told him to reject it. But deep inside, another voice whispered, this was his moment of choice. Remain trapped in the past, or embrace the future. With a deep, shuddering breath, Zelvar grasped Daniel's hand. And as the human pulled him to his feet, the galaxy watched in stunned silence. The galaxy reacts. The Galactic High Council sent out emergency messages. Every military force, every intelligence agency, every leader across the stars received the same report. The balance of power has shifted. The humans are not to be underestimated. In secret war rooms, strategies were rewritten. Some factions wanted to befriend humanity. Others, they wanted to eliminate them before they became an even greater threat. Daniel Hayes had done more than just win a fight. He had changed the course of history. Zelvar's final words. As the noise in the arena settled, Zelvar turned to Daniel. "You have my respect, human." Daniel smirked. "Took you long enough." For the first time, Zelvar laughed, a deep, genuine laugh. Perhaps this was not the end. Perhaps this was a new beginning. A future where warriors did not fight only to destroy, but to learn, to grow. And perhaps, just perhaps, the galaxy had just taken its first step towards something far greater than war, a new respect for humanity. The galactic grand arena, once filled with the deafening roars of spectators, now buzzed with an entirely different energy. Uncertainty. The impossible had happened. Zelvar, the undefeated warrior, the greatest champion of the known galaxy, had yielded, not to a superior force, not to an overwhelming power, but to a single human. A species once considered insignificant had just rewritten history. Daniel Hayes stood tall, his posture relaxed, his breathing calm. He wasn't covered in bruises, nor did he seem exhausted. He had just fought the strongest warrior in the galaxy, and won. And yet he wasn't celebrating. Instead, he simply watched Zelvar, as if waiting for something. Zelvar's awakening. The mighty warrior still felt the sting of his loss, but something inside him had shifted. This was more than just a defeat. It was an awakening. For his entire life, he had believed that strength alone decided victory. But today, he had been outmatched by something else entirely. Speed, intelligence, tactics, adaptation. The way Daniel fought was unlike anything Zelvar had ever faced. He didn't rely on brute force, nor did he have the strongest body, the sharpest claws, or the toughest armor. But he had something more dangerous. The ability to learn, to evolve, to think ahead. Zelvar clenched his fists. It was a lesson he had never been taught, and it came from the one species the galaxy had mocked for centuries. The reaction of the High Council. Above the arena, in the grand observation balcony, the leaders of the Galactic High Council stood in a stunned silence. Each of them understood the true weight of what had just happened. A towering armored reptilian general turned to his advisors. "Send a report to the military command. We must evaluate the true combat capabilities of humans." A sleek, cybernetic diplomat adjusted his optical implants. "This changes the entire political structure of the galaxy. We must reconsider our stance on human alliances." A high-ranking noble from an avian species whispered in hushed tones, "If one human can do this, what about their armies?" There was fear in the air. Fear of the unknown. Fear of what humanity was capable of. The warrior's honor. Back in the arena, Zelvar took a deep breath. He turned toward Daniel and, without hesitation, bowed deeply. Gasps rippled through the crowd. The champion had never bowed to anyone. Not to kings, not to emperors, not even to the High Council. And yet, before a single human, he lowered his head in respect. Daniel raised an eyebrow. "Didn't think you were the bowing type." Zelvar smirked, still recovering from his humiliation. "It would be dishonorable not to recognize a greater warrior when I see one." More gasps, more shock. Zelvar was not just conceding the match. He was publicly acknowledging that Daniel was superior to him. It was a moment that would echo through the galaxy for years to come. The division of the galaxy. Even as respect for humanity grew among many, others saw this event as a threat. Across the stars, powerful factions began holding emergency meetings. Some wanted alliances. If humans were this powerful, it was better to have them as friends than enemies. Others wanted war. If humanity could produce warriors like Daniel, then they had to be eliminated before they became a galactic superpower. But one thing was certain. The age of underestimating humanity was over. A conversation between warriors. As the audience struggled to process what had just happened, Daniel turned to Zelvar with a smirk. "You fight well, but you rely too much on brute strength." Zelvar crossed his arms, a small grin forming. "And you talk too much, human." Daniel shrugged. "Maybe. But if we ever fight again, you'll need to do better." The champion laughed, a deep, genuine sound that surprised even his own people. It was not the laugh of a warrior mocking an opponent. It was the laugh of a warrior who had just found his greatest rival. The aftermath. As the match officially ended, the Galactic High Council announced a special decree. Humanity is to be recognized as an official warrior race. It was unprecedented. For centuries, the strongest warriors in the galaxy had been the Korthan, the Ralzeth, the Tovak. But today, a new name was added to the list: humans. And the galaxy would never be the same again. The beginning of something greater. As Daniel left the arena, he glanced back at Zelvar. "This isn't the last time we'll meet." Zelvar grinned. "I hope not." It was not a rivalry fueled by hatred. It was a rivalry fueled by respect, by a shared desire to become stronger, by the knowledge that this battle was only the beginning. The galaxy had just witnessed the rise of humanity, and no one, not the High Council, not the greatest empires, not even Zelvar himself, knew just how far humanity would go. The beginning of a new era. The echoes of battle had faded, but their impact had only just begun. The galactic Grand Arena, once filled with roars of excitement, now hummed with uncertainty. Conversations sparked across the universe, spreading like wildfire. The legend of Zelvar's defeat at the hands of a human would be told for generations. But this was more than just a single fight. This was the beginning of something far greater. The shockwaves across the galaxy. News of the fight spread beyond the arena walls, traveling across the hypernet to every corner of the known universe. Entire civilizations were forced to reconsider everything they knew about humanity. On the planet Vorsk, a warrior clan leader growled in frustration. His people had always prided themselves on strength. How could a human defeat the greatest champion in the galaxy? In the halls of the Xyrek Empire, generals and admirals whispered among themselves. If humans had warriors like Daniel Hayes, what did that mean for the future of interstellar warfare? On the human homeworld, Earth, celebrations erupted. Humanity had just proven itself on the grandest stage imaginable. But amidst the cheers, world leaders sat in tense meetings. Because they all knew the truth, this victory would not go unnoticed. The galaxy had just opened its eyes to humanity. And now, some would want alliances, some would want war, but no one would ignore them ever again. Zelvar's redemption. In his private quarters, Zelvar sat alone. The once proud warrior was no longer angry, no longer ashamed. He had lost. But for the first time in his life, he didn't see defeat as an end. He saw it as a beginning. Zelvar had spent centuries dominating lesser fighters, crushing challengers with brute force. But today, he had faced a warrior who had truly tested him. And now he had a new goal, a new purpose. He would become stronger. He would learn. And one day, he would face Daniel again, not for revenge, but to see how much they both had grown. A grin spread across his face. Next time, human. Next time, I'll be ready. The High Council's dilemma. Meanwhile, in the towering halls of the Galactic High Council, a crisis meeting was underway. The most powerful leaders in the universe sat in silence, replaying footage of the battle. Daniel Hayes had done more than win a fight. He had changed the balance of power. The Chancellor, a being of pure energy, finally spoke. What do we do about humanity? A reptilian warlord slammed his clawed hand on the table. They are dangerous. If one of them can defeat Zelvar, imagine what their armies can do. We must act before they become a threat. A cybernetic strategist adjusted his glowing optics. Or, we could forge an alliance. Humanity's potential is limitless. If we work with them instead of against them, we could shape the future together. The room erupted into debate. Half the council saw humanity as a threat that must be eliminated. The other half saw them as an opportunity. One thing was clear. Humanity would never be ignored again. Daniel's return to Earth. As Daniel Hayes boarded his ship, preparing to return home, he couldn't help but smirk. He had never set out to change the galaxy. He was just a fighter, a soldier who had spent years learning how to survive. But now he had the entire universe's attention. His communicator pinged. A message from the Terran Defense Council. "We need to talk. The galaxy is watching us now." Daniel chuckled to himself. Yeah, no pressure. The future of humanity. As his ship jumped to FTL speed, countless empires, warlords, and rulers across the galaxy watched the replay of his battle. Some saw a new rival. Some saw a potential ally. Some saw a target. But no matter what they thought, one truth remained. The age of human insignificance was over. The galaxy had mocked humanity. The galaxy had underestimated them. But now, the galaxy had learned a new, terrifying truth. Humans weren't just survivors. They were warriors. And this was only the beginning.